Hello and welcome back to the Betarians Podcast. I am joined today with a new guest today, Des.
Hello.
Des is one of the first ever playtesters of Animite Tales way back in the day, and I even did a couple of podcasts with her on her channel at The12D20.
Is my mic okay? I should have asked that before you even record.
yeah, your mic's okay. And of course, we're joined with Alex Obscuricon.
Hi.
Alfie, also known as Daddy Mothmaster.
Greetings, humans. It is I.
And of course, Samwise T.
Salutations and well met.
So today we're going through.
See, I too can make a joking intro.
This intro has immediately just gone buttered, like entirely just melted, and just like melted butter, it is delicious. So we. This has gone terribly wrong. So anyway, yes, today we're actually doing a different podcast. We've actually got Des as our guest today on the podcast because we're actually going to be talking about something different than we usually talk about. Today we're going to be talking about
Psychology, and I didn't know that was my cue to talk. I'll wait for pauses.
They don't...
Psychology, and well, it's the psychological benefits of RPG, just RPG in general.
Yeah. Yes, the psychological benefits of RPGs, role-play games. Basically, when we take, when we're basically doing tabletop role-play games, or even just role-play games in general, do they help us? How do they help us? Let's find out how they have or can potentially help us. Today, this week, we're not going to be talking about any particular tropes or superpowers. We're actually just going to be talking about psychological benefits, or even benefits to a person's like mental health, in the terms of like how tabletop RPGs actually help people and stuff like that, or even just role playing in general. This week, Des is probably the best person to have had for this one in probably a while, because I mean, like, I don't really know much about psychological benefits other than just what I have seen or personally felt that RPGs have done for myself or some of my friends. But we've actually got some academic capacity for this one. So, Des, why don't you take it away? Why did you choose this subject, and do you have any examples?
You say the best person to talk about psychology, and I'm probably one of the most messed up people here. But why did I choose psychology? So I have the 12D20. I had the 12D20. I handed it over to Joe. But it's kind of like just in limbo right now. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
I lost the keys.
I still have the keys. I just forgot to toss them across the pond to you.
Okay.
But I should probably send you passwords and stuff. Anyway, but yeah, it's just hovering over there in limbo. I had a group, and then we all kind of it was my decision actually to release the group from its like YouTube stuff, and I was handling a lot of control of it, and I got the infamous DM burnout. But basically, I was studying communications at the time. I got so wrapped up in school, and the more I studied communication, the more I realized I love the human brain. Like, humans are actually my favorite animal. I promise I'm not an alien.
I mean, I don't believe you.
It's the human.
Humans are my favorite. But it's just very fascinating. And after a couple months, I'm studying psychology now. In partnership with my communications, but and getting back into RPG after so many months, when you asked me to be a guest on here, like you wanted to say what's your favorite superpowers, and I'm like, I like mind control stuff, obviously.
Obviously.
And then I said, well, can I talk about psychology? And you were very, 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 very nice. You said, well, that's not really what we talk about. But and then you talk to your team, and I thank your team very, very much for letting me talk about this. So you all let me pick your brains about this, And yeah, that's why I want to talk about it, because I'm into psychology. I like studying people, why they learn, why I learn. And, I've had, different, parts of my life where, mental capability was interesting, and wanted to get myself better as well. I'm always looking to improve myself. So psychology definitely. Yeah. What was that one thing that I told you guys? I'm too uptight for philosophy, but I'm too stupid for neurology. So psychology it
Aw.
is.
I mean, to be
I love
fair,
making fun of myself. That's the thing. I love making fun of myself, because I like to not. I'm not smart with words.
I
But
mean,
I
to
do.
be fair,
Like, I love to
you've
laugh at
structured
myself.
sentences better than I have in this last few minutes than I have in all three of the four of the last podcast. See,
You can word good.
I can't word the
Word
good.
good.
No, I can't.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted to talk about it. Because I know why I play RPGs. I love the creativity. I love telling stories. Despite me going back and forth between RPGs and being a recluse, kind of a hermit these quite many past couple months, as everybody, but all the way from back in last October or September, November, I forget. That's when I just like shut myself off from the world. But and you were there for that too, Joe. You were like one of the I didn't talk to a lot of people, but I talked to you, and you were one of the few.
Yay!
Because you're one of the people that keep me sane, believe it or not.
Which is, yeah, that's actually quite an unbelievable sort of statement there. I think I'm actually going to have to get that in writing. I mean, this podcast might not be enough to actually have proof, but I've kept someone sane.
But so that's why I like RPGs. So what about y'all? And I say y'all a lot. I'm from Texas, and I love talking about that. So
That's
see.
fine.
A lot. I am not from Texas.
I like y'all, yeah. And as a word, and also
No.
I like y'all. You're my friend.
I like y'all too.
I mean,
So what
don't
about
don't
y'all?
say whenever you say Y and L together, make sure that it's not eol, because a certain someone might get a bit murdery. That's just a reference. We were playing Dark Souls 3 the other day, and Sam happened to accidentally kill an NPC. Straight up. But yeah, I guess
Again,
yeah,
if only you had told me this, as opposed to.
I'm
oh
not
my
gonna
God,
do
he's-
that.
Let us hit this guy, who every other person has been evil and attacked me. But no, Joe. Also, thanks for telling me the chest was a mimic, which he didn't.
I love it. I love it. It's great. Anyway, yes. So does anyone have any particular examples of this subject?
Or
one.
why you got into RPG at all
Okay.
as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, go for it, Alfie.
I know that at the moment, or over the last couple of years, that therapists have been using various sort of RPG games in order to coax their younger clientele and sort of like teenage clientele into sort of opening up a bit. Because they find that by using kind of a character that they've made almost like a proxy, then it's a lot easier to talk about like things such as like trauma or just various issues and things like that are going on within yourself. I know that everyone kind of does that to some degree, whether they are or are not conscious of it. Like people's characters that they make, even when they're writing or when they're playing any kind of game, are usually some kind of projection of some part of themselves, if not a complete character insert. I'm looking at you, Alex.
Call out.
Called out live on stream.
You actually called it out before I did. Damn.
Beat you to it, just about. But yeah, like you can get all sort of manner of different characters at various degrees of author inserts, and they can be really helpful in allowing people to talk about their issues without actually talking about their issues specifically. Also, segueing kind of from that, like when I first ever got into these sorts of games, it was mainly because I had a background as trying to be a writer for a number of years. I've always been really into writing, like ever since sort of when I was a little kid. I literally like on my old like. Do you guys remember the computer make for Time, like Time computers? They were like really old bootlegs that were like those big chunky like white computers that you see in like the old Matrix films where they have
Oh, right. Yeah.
kind of like those, and like this logo of it was like this big hourglass. But the computers, like I remember them running really really slowly. But like when I was growing up there, my parents didn't have internet for ages because they didn't really sort of like. I think it was necessary for a while, so I didn't really actually have the access to the internet except for in the library until I was about sort of 15 or so. But like when we had this old chunky sort of like Time computer, I ended up getting Microsoft Word onto it just so that I could write all these different stories. And I used to spend like my summers pretty much just writing stories, or like if I'd be playing a game on like my PS2 or something like that and not like something about the game, I'd go onto my computer and basically write an entire script for the game, how I would want it to be, and on like it's like fanfic almost. But I used to do this like constantly, and it kind of like then evolved into playing RPGs in a way that I could just make a narrative, and then basically co-author things with other people by playing as a character, and then eventually trying to take it a foray out into like DMing as well. I'm really enjoying it at the moment.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a lot more of an involved process because I am a massive extrovert, as Joe probably knows from years of knowing me.
Yes,
I'm a
I do.
huge
Yeah.
and and that's the thing is like when I'm sitting in my room, kind of typing away, writing something, I do go a bit stir crazy quite a lot. Like it's like a mild form of like ADHD, where I'm just like I need to immediately go and speak to people like after spending about half an hour writing, or like just go online and speak to people. Whereas if you're playing like an RPG, it's like you're writing a story and then acting it out, and then also having people giving you immediate feedback and immediate kind of directions in the narrative. And it's basically co-authoring a story, which I think is fantastic. So it's a good sort of it's a good cooperative gaming medium. That's how I first got into it anyway.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to go?
Yeah, I do. How I got into RPGs. I mean, I'm kind of the opposite to Alfie. I'm not extroverted at all. I'm quite introverted, and I'm usually quite quiet. I can, get involved in things, but I've always found that quite difficult. And I'm quite guarded because of like my past and stuff, and just not being very good in too many social situations. Until I kind of warm up a little bit, and I found that RPGs were, a way of doing that. Just an excuse to get like a bunch of people together who you may or may not normally hang out with, and just sort of do a collective thing together and just tell a story together. And it's sort of an icebreaker, I suppose. And it does, like, when you actually go on a narrative journey with people, it's hard not to, like, show more of yourself, I think, and like get attachments to my friends. Because like I didn't, I actually met Joe through beta testing the Anime Tales. I've met all of you actually through the Anime Tales games.
Yes.
And yeah, and so it's like, and we're all really good friends now. So
Eh.
it kind of brought us together.
No, yeah, absolutely. I'd say so. Yeah.
Couldn't even let me have the one.
No.
Just I'm having an emotional moment here, Joe.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. And well, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to say. Really, it's just sort of brought me out of my shell a little bit, which is what I wanted it to do, as well as it just being, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. Creating a story together and going on like, a narrative journey together through this world that someone else has created in their brain.
Really get to know a person like quite well through the characters that they play as well. I feel
Yeah.
that. Like it very much is, as much as each of us kind of try to make characters very very distinctly different between various different campaigns that we play, they always seem to end up or start out within a general ballpark for each person, where it's like yep, I can tell that is a character that Alex has made. I can tell that's a Sam character. I can tell that's a Joe character, depending on like who he's obviously playing.
It's funny you say that.
I am
Actually,
worried. What does my characters tell you about
I mean,
me?
I don't want to say, but I will just say this. At some point, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get all of you guys to make your characters. I want you to tell each other stuff about your characters, to the point of which at least one person has swapped each other's characters for intros. Tell me, and then I have to then guess whose is whose characters.
That'll be brilliant.
Because then we can see whether or
pretty
not
cool.
we actually do put small amounts of each other or ourselves in those characters.
Definitely. I mean, what would
Sam's
be
will probably be
interesting as
something like
well-
RoboCop or something. I don't know, but
No, I don't think so. I would, because you say that, I would deliberately do something off the wall then. that
but
has
then I'd
nothing
know
to
it
do with-
was you. But
Yeah.
who knows? Or maybe I
Maybe.
won't. Who knows?
That would actually be a thing I was thinking of actually, was to have like sort of literally a blank slate, like, you know, a game of clones, essentially.
I
Where-
did say
yeah, a
that.
game
Yeah,
of
the
clones,
clone
yeah.
run where it's like everyone is literally the same, either the same powers or the same person at the same level. But then it's like
That'd be fun.
everyone has pretty much the exact same things starting off, but like everyone has one trait that is different.
You could have it so that
Okay.
it's also a body swap one as well, where you know you each create characters, then you go right down to it. You know, pass your character sheets to the left. You know, in the thing, it's like okay,
Awesome.
I also had a dual personality play run where someone was playing as an anomaly, and they were just like, "Oh, I have a split personality, and one uses this side, the other one uses the other side." I said, "That'd be such a cool idea to use that for, like two sets of players who can't always make it to each session." So it's like, okay, on these weekends or on these days, you'll go to this session, and on these days you go to this session. So therefore, you can actually spend time doing your own things. But then on the next week, you can then come to them. So therefore, you get to enjoy it. But then, like, it's that whole thing of you're playing the same character, but your personality is using this power, and the other personality is using the other power. And so it's kind of like waking up and suddenly going, why have I got all this stuff? Why am I missing so much money? Or why have I now suddenly got like in this band of bandits or something? Or why have I suddenly got so many? Why am I in jail? Yeah, like the whole thing of like, by the way, your other personality did this, and you're like, oh, Devon, and it's like you're just realizing that like you'll have to text message the other person or call them and go, why did you throw us in jail? And I thought that would be a really cool sort of infighting idea.
Just leave a note on like the door of your jail cell, which goes, "Sorry."
Sorry.
Actually, you know what it reminds me of? If any of you have seen The Nutty Professor, there was a
Yes.
bit where the kind of remake of it, where Buddy Love recorded himself to talk to the professor and pretty much mock him for being fat and all that, and like pretty much say that he's going to be the dominant personality at some point. You could do that with if you're going to do.
That is true. That is actually true. So Sam, when was the first time that you got into RPGs?
Pretty much it was because of, if any of you have seen the Spoony one. I listened to his Counter
yeah.
Monkey series, and I kind of was very interested in it because of that, because the stories were quite funny and they seemed quite interesting. And at the time, I had been doing written RPs with people online anyway, so I thought, this could be fun because it's dice and stuff. It's Dungeons and Dragons. Everyone knows that. So pretty much, I got into Roll20, and after couple of failed attempts at joining one of them being the Doctor Who RPG, which lasted all about 3 games before the DM just kind of stopped talking to us.
Aw.
I don't really know why. and then I got onto Xanath, this great artist for this.
Yes, all the art
I
that
got
I'm
the
currently showing now on the screen, like any of this is coming soon entertainment, but you know him as Xanath.
Indeed. And I got into a D&D game with him, where I played as the legendary, at least in that group, Kane the Cook. Of course, I didn't really know much about the game back then, and I even decided to try and do an accent, which was a mistake. Because I can't do accents.
I mean, it
very
was so
learned.
bad that the one that you've got just stuck, and now that's how you've got your accent now, isn't it?
No. I tried to do an Irish accent.
And like, yeah, every time he goes, we stop recording, he goes, "Was that all right? Did I do it right?"
Oh, yes. Marvellous.
I believe as though that was not the greatest way that I could have pronounced speedster, but I had to do it in case anyway.
But nonetheless,
Yes, for all those who are unaware, I am from Northern Ireland, which does have a slight accent from which you can tell from my voice.
told us you were from Devonshire.
But yes, that's how I got into RPGs and the like.
Okay. I mean,
I'm afraid my story is less psychologically thrilling as the rest of you.
in all honesty, mine...
Boring, but that's how I got into it.
No, I think it's good. I don't think it needs to be this big, massive gesture, because how I got into RPGing was literally I was sat there listening to someone talking about Dungeons and Dragons. It was actually a Team 4 Stars podcast, and they were talking about that they were doing this thing called the Unexpectables, and it was literally like that was the name of their crew in D&D. And I think that's been going on for quite a while now. But they were talking about like, oh yeah, with the great thing with Dungeons and Dragons is that you can make this character, and it's like, everyone imagines it in their own art style in their head, and you have all these things, and if you get a good roll, then it means that you do this thing, and if you don't get a good roll, then it's like either this really annoying thing personally for you and or your character, or it can be this really funny moment where all of you are laughing because they accidentally fell over and caved their head in with a rock. But it's that kind of thing of it's that moment of having the capability of being able to imagine almost anything for your characters to do, but also for your creativity. And it's not like in video games where you are quite limited to a lot of things. Like Dungeons and Dragons has almost an infinite possibility, but then when you go on to certain things, it's like, yeah, but you're not able to do this, you're not able to make that, and that's something that kind of frustrated me. And I thought, oh, you know what would be great? You know what I really love right now? One Punch Man, My Hero Academia, DC Comics, Marvel Comics. I love all of them, and I really love the concept of superheroes, really powerful concepts. And also I really do like magic, I do like technology, and I do like weird spatial aliens and things, but I feel like a tabletop system that works really well with anything should start with something that's slightly more unique. And although superpowered RPGs have been done before, I wanted to make it feel that anything could be made on this system, and that it's not just for superpowers. But I needed to prove that superpowers could be done in an interesting and, although seemingly overpowered way,
Only sometimes.
a fairly balanced way as well. Because although you could have a character who could flatten an entire city in one punch, there's always going to be someone that could then beat them, but their abilities aren't super destructive. It's that they can do anything. And so when I first got into RPGs, it was actually me making the Animite Tales for the first ever time. And so what I did was I learnt the very basics of how it went around with looking at character sheets and stuff. And my friend Kane, he's now in Rockstar, and he now does QA and everything like that. Lucky bastard.
Oh.
But he is the guy who got me into it, and he basically told me I think you could actually have a really good system on your hands. You just need to think of how you want it to work and what you want it to do. And thanks to him, all of this was pretty much possible, and because of his support and his belief in the system. And then I had other friends who in uni actually was like, yeah, we've got loads of work going on, but yeah, let's do this let's do this tabletop. And every week we'd meet up, and we'd play it. And the way that they actually got their powers, instead of me writing down loads, they just hit a random link that would send them anywhere on the on this Wikipedia, where it showed you any superpower, with whether it was magical, mutant, cosmic, universal, any kind of scale. And it was like, yeah, we'll just pick it out. And the first 4 powers that were ever picked out was wasp physiology, projectile enhancement, so in other words, you could throw things at the speed of a bullet or transform into a wasp. Energy beam emission, so this guy literally just could shoot lasers. And healing factor. And when we got everyone to roll for their stats and when we started the game, they did now what is now the module that will hopefully be coming out at some point, known as the Super Society. And they really enjoyed the campaign to the point of which that I said, no, I'm going to make this game. And about a year later, I'd struggled to try and get much traction going. And then a year later on from that, I met Des, and Bill at the time was doing his module. And so we were like, yeah, could you help us out and everything like that? And I still don't know how anyone would say yes to that. Like, yeah, there's just this random RPG that we're thinking of making. And thanks to Des and another guy called Dune, we were able to get that started off. And ever since then, thanks to Des and Ben, also known as Puffin Forest, and Aiden, and everyone else, like, thanks to every single one of them, I have actually had that courage again from just when I just had my friend Kane. And so for me, Animite Tales has sort of been the thing that has pushed me to continue on the whole concept of role-playing games. I do quite like D&D. I've played it a couple times now, but I like the system. I like the system that we have here mostly because it allows anyone to make any kind of story, and it literally is centered around infinite possibilities, absolute capability. And thanks to it, now that every single one of you have played it, I kind of feel like that sort of sharing that I've been able to do with you, like, share with all of you this sort of almost this mind baby. I feel like I've been able to actually sort of share a piece of myself, and I'm glad that people have enjoyed the game so far. And that's what I want. I want people to be able to see this game, play this game, listen to podcasts of this game or anything, and just sort of go, that's a really cool system. I like it. That's all I want. That's all I really want. I want enough people to at least enjoy it. That's all I want. That people can sit there and play it or listen to it or be around it and enjoy it. Make things for it, whatever. Because ultimately, I think in the terms of creation, when you're creating something that comes from your mind, whether you're writing, whether you're developing, whether you're making music, writing a story, making a theatre piece, or even when you're developing, designing, or building, structuring. I think when you personally do it, it makes so much more. It means so much more to you when people actually look at it and less go, yeah, it's good. They say, I enjoyed it. Like, I actually enjoyed it, and whether or not I'd enjoy it again, or I just enjoyed it for that one time. Either way, it means all that much difference. And it's the exact same as when you're a DM, and when you're a player and your DM says, I really like your character, and that it just feels like that piece. So I think that's the sort of the psychological benefits that I'd say.
I will say that was an ego boost. Speaking of like that, because I did hear you off chat at one time. You was to say like, oh, Aspen's like my favorite character in that campaign. I was like,
yeah, Johnny on the other hand.
yeah, just punish Johnny. Yeah.
No, I like Johnny, to be honest. I just don't think
he just needs a time to shine.
He needs his time to shine. But yeah, I love the thing is I love every single one of the characters that you guys, all of you, have made. I do love Ned Zed the Jester Mime.
He is my favorite.
I do love Aspen, of course, Alex. Legion, oh man, Legion, and Adrian. Oh, both of those are great. And of course, Des, who could forget Micah? Just Micah was brilliant.
Adorably small and complicated. Great.
I must say, I am a little sad I didn't get to see Micah in action, because that sounds amazing.
I'm always, now that I have time, all my classes have been pushed online. I would not be opposed to doing a cameo of Micah.
Angry Rock, yes.
Angry Rock Lady.
That'd be fun. But yeah, so
I
that's
think I could never trust a Micah after
I don't
Red Dead
know.
Redemption 2.
I don't know where she is right now. She's in a bag.
in another world, thanks to a
In
interdimensional
another
bag.
Yep.
Oh, Bill, you make the greatest and also
Yeah.
weirdest things. Yeah, my brother is great when it comes to like making campaigns. I think that his are much more interesting and complicated, but yet also complex and intricate. But I will say one thing that before I pass this on, because I will say, why was it chosen? I think you've pretty much answered that already, Des. Because it interests you. You are intrigued by it. We'll go on to our questions for all of us to have a question potentially for Des. But I have one last thing to say. The psychological benefits. One of the things that I really like. Sort of like a thing that people might see as a downside, but honestly, I think of it as an upside. A YouTuber called Zbashu or Zbashu. He does a lot of the animated spell books. If anyone's listening to this and anyone likes D&D, honestly look up his stuff. Animated spell book, you'll know it. He always like makes his character look like a dwarf, or an elf, or pretty much any kind of weird fantasy sort of character. He's great. All of it's animated, and he's brilliant at explaining things. But one of my favorite things that he ever said, and honestly, I will probably keep this to like my heart forever when it comes to RPGs, and everyone needs to listen to this, particularly, which is, you make a character believing or hoping that they will be their main character of their own story, but ultimately the main character is not just you, it's everyone who is sat around that table with you. You can't be this ultimate unkillable god, because that technically, if you can, so can everyone else. So we have to remember, is no one is special, it's the story that makes your character special. And that's probably one of my favourite things. It's grounding. It makes you realise that you are not the only person at that table. So instead of trying to be the one best person to try and one-up everyone, try and make it interesting. Try and only one-up one person, go back and forth, and have this kind of interesting rivalry, like with Aspen and Cosmos. Or try and make your character sort of fit in or fit out of a particular dynamic in their own way. But remember, splitting the party just because that you want to go off and do your own thing, that struggles and strains for everyone. And the best feeling in the world is when you can actually bounce off of other people. I know my friend that she had a lot of problems with trying to get into this game, and she kept saying like, oh, I don't really enjoy it, I don't really like it. And I said, you have been splitting the party constantly, you have been going out on your own a lot. Just play with everyone else and you'll understand what it means to actually be a part of the role-playing game together. And they did, and they stuck around for a couple of months after that, before then like their schedules got a bit too tight. And they said that I really enjoyed it, I really enjoyed playing it. And I said, yeah, as I thought you would, because you're not playing on your own. And I think that's exactly the point is that I'm trying to get at, is no one is the main character, because everyone in that group is the main character. And just because that your character,
it's a co-op game.
Yeah, just because your character dies doesn't mean that you can't play. It means that that character just wasn't the character that's supposed to be the destined hero at the end of the story, or the destined villain at the end of the story. You know, someone else is, or the whole group is, or something is. And you could obviously screw over the rest of the gang at the end of the game and just completely wipe everyone out. I'm the ultimate villain, and that's how it ends. Yeah, you could do that, but try and get to the end of the game before doing that. That's my piece. Like that's my piece. That's one of the things that I love about it. That I do like the concept of super powerful characters, but I much love the idea of that everyone is in the whole thing together, and it's a team building sort of exercise. And whether you're splitting off the party, whether it's because that's actually your character arc or not, that should always be the concept of like, when you do come back to the party, don't try and separate them again. Try and like make the whole separation like the part of like, you realize, no, we need each other sort of thing. But yeah, that's my main thing. No one is the main character. Technically, no one has plot armor. No one is conveniently able to get saved all the time. You are not immortal. You will inevitably be defeated by something that you ran away from to fight on your own. That's my piece.
No, you'll just get your arm broken and beaten. Really.
So does anyone have any questions for Des?
I'm not sure really. I mean, I kind of like. I mean, actually, yeah, I do have a question. Like this whole thing of psychology and stuff. Like, as someone who runs games and has been in games, like for people like me who have a little trouble, maybe have like a bit of like social anxiety and like different psychological sort of problems, I guess. um, if they're getting them into RPGs or making it attractive, like what would you do? Like, what would you kind of ease them into it and maybe sort of, if they're not getting into it at first?
If you're not getting it, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's pretty much my piece.
If you're not sure how to get into RPGs, but it looks exciting, definitely keep watching those videos to inspire you, like, and listen to podcasts like these, to inspire you to get ideas. Start writing, like get a journal and just start writing down a bunch of characters, and you'll start getting excited. It's like, I love these powers, I love these abilities, I really want to show them off. And then I know there's Facebook groups. That's how I found Joe. And there's Meetup is, I think that's an app. There's apps online as well, different, and ask people. You never. That's another thing. Ask your friends, people in your family. A lot of people that I started off doing RPG with strangers, and then I told my friends about it, and my friend said, "Well, I would love to do. I've heard of that, but I'd never thought anybody else would like it." So they kept it to themselves. You're not the only one in your friend circle or your family that has thought about it. I guarantee it. So definitely, like, tell your friends, tell your family, I'm into RPG. This is my character, blah, blah, blah. And even if they've never heard of it, they'll get excited with you, and you'll kind of feed off of that excitement together. And heck, I know Ben in one of his videos, he said sometimes he's played a game by himself. He DMs himself, and it's just make a story to see how the mechanics work of a story of an RPG. See what you like about it, learn from that. The RPG community, I gotta say this above everything else. You have your gamer community that will bash you, be like, you're not a gamer, blah blah blah. Or different, like yogis, yoga people, like, oh, you're not a true yogi, or stuff like that. You'll have those people. I have never seen that in RPG. I gotta say, I've never seen an RPG. I've talked to a lot of strangers all over the world, and they've all been, when I had a question, like, I really don't know how this spell works, I really don't know how this power works, I'm like, oh, let me tell you. They are ready to tell you. They are ready to, like, attack you with information. It is amazing. So if you're scared, you're not the only one. Everybody's waiting for you to ask them questions. Everybody's waiting for you to step that foot out.
Their knowledge.
Yeah, guys,
Exactly.
hint.
Exactly.
You don't know this rule? Well, on page 125 in the core rulebook, it says, line 3 says.
I mean, coin is
Exactly.
definitely like that. Like, coming soon is definitely like that.
Like everything in your life, everything, even getting out of bed, you are in charge of your happiness. And if you're not happy with RPG, don't do it. If, like that one girl that you had, you were a supportive DM. You said, just stay with the group, believe me. And then she made her own happiness. She chose to go and be with the group. So that was her. She could have said, I don't want to do it. This is ridiculous. But she chose to listen to you, and it was through your support that she did. But a lot of kudos to her for sticking it out. And with anybody who who was it, Sam, or who mentioned the DM that just didn't talk to anybody?
Sam, yes, yeah.
Oh,
No.
I
Yeah,
shouldn't say that. More like he just kind of we tried to like use like Discord to like text him,
Yeah.
but after a while, I just kind of stopped replying altogether. We don't really know what happened.
And what I can't speak for that person, but I can speak for me. And I know, Alex, you had said, as somebody who runs games, it's tough. It's having to be a counselor to everybody, having to learn everybody's spells. You're one player and you have your spells and your abilities that you focus on. This DM has everybody's and their own schedules and everybody else's schedules and the world. They want to make it entertaining. It gets stressful. It gets overwhelming sometimes. That's why I shut myself off from the 12D20 back in November. I was like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it. I even had like a shutdown during the summer. I was like, we're taking a break, because it was just a lot. And people that put themselves out there to be a DM, so yeah, that person should have communicated better. It's like, hey guys, I really am not feeling it. That way you can go find another game and you're not waiting
we
for somebody
did.
else. But if you are good. If you are a DM and you're feeling that burnout,
Swap
tell your
immediately.
people. Tell your
Absolutely.
people.
I absolutely agree with that because, unfortunately, a few of my friends who I do game with quite a lot, either in video games or as a tabletop RPG, with D&D, they've unfortunately had a few. I even had a few bad experiences with games that weren't clicking, or like the DM that wouldn't communicate well, or
Mhm.
didn't just got overwhelmed and stuff. And it's funny that you described it as being like a counselor. It almost is that sort of role. Like you have to sort of you have to juggle so many things and all of these people, and it is kind of like a bit like group therapy. Like if
It
you just
really is
sort of,
group
yeah,
therapy.
if you just ignore like someone's problems, like the whole thing, and and focus on everything else, like the whole thing can collapse down, unfortunately. And unfortunately that had happened a few times where like a huge bit of drama erupted, when really it shouldn't. It just sort of talk to each other and listen to each other. And it's like, yeah, it's, and when it gets right, when you get it right, of course, it can be wonderful. It can be just like, not a big deal at all, or even therapeutic.
It
But
is like
yeah,
everything. It is just pick your audience, pick your people, pick your friends, pick whatever, pick your players. Because I mean, yes, if you want to be like a counselor, like someone who actually someone says, "Oh, I can't come to the game. I just don't really feel up to it." Some people will just go, "Okay, that's fine. You're either out of the group or okay, yeah, come when you can," sort of thing. Depending on the person. But I personally am like, what's up? How's everything going? Now, some people don't do that, and some I will point this out. Not everyone has to, but some players also have to know that, like, if they're not always in the best state of mind, then they should always be trying to be understanding of other people for schedules. Like, I feel like that's just for anyone and everyone. To be fair, if you are taking up a person's time, definitely make sure that you are going to at least be somewhat courteous of the time that you are taking up.
talk to people.
Talk to people, yes, talk to people. Because I have had so many players that have either talked to me so much or I've talked to them too much. And hopefully, usually things just get out in the open. And I think what's really weird is that I take on a lot of people's like burdens, and I'm just like almost like as if I'm personally insulted for them, that like they are getting these like horrible things, like, yeah, I just feel like really bad. Oh, depression is the worst. I hate depression. Like it's like, I can't remember who said it, but someone said, you know what, Joe, I've never actually known anyone to verbally basically assault a feeling or an emotion before. I went, hey, it's upsetting you. It's like,
I hate anger.
oh, why am I so angry? Anger.
Oh,
But
like, hi.
it's because once you want, like, because I am like kind of like the jester. Once someone sees that there is someone being as openly explosively foolish, you then just go, yeah, I mean, I've either got a good friend or I've clearly got an idiot who really just wants to at least cheer me up. Like, my goal isn't always, when I'm trying to cheer people up, to get into a game. My goal is to just make sure that they are okay, because whether or not a future game is good or bad for me, it's actually better for them. Because again, the psychological positive, I know what it's like to have burnout, and my burnout is more from games keep being cancelled, and then I have to work around certain people not coming into one session but then coming into another session. And yeah, I know that kind of burnout. So yeah, I mean, like, there's positives and negatives to obviously RPGs, but I think the positives almost always outweigh the negatives, because it's just that thing of like, I've just been really finding it difficult to get into my character. It's like, cool, did you want to swap out to another one? Did you want to make another one? Did you want to sort of ask me for any tips and pointers as to maybe how to help your character progress, get better, stronger, more interesting, or even just, as I said, swap out to another one? It really just depends. I think you are right, Des and Alex. Like, it is like basically being a counselor.
To go on to your point about being respectful of other people's time, don't rely on the group or the DM to make you happy.
Yes.
You know, you can have people that are very caring and very sympathetic or empathetic, and that reach out, hey, are you okay? You okay? But you know, don't bring them down with you. You know, if they're trying to help you, so definitely, if or if
Communicate.
you're yes, if they need space, give them their space.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
if you're really happy with them, and it's like, oh, I need you in my life, and a DM says, hey guys, I really need to go on, like, give me a couple weeks, just give me like a month to just like, I got other stuff to do, leave them alone, just like
They're only
they will
human.
come back to you. Don't pressure them, or they will like completely retract.
I think I've
That
only ever done
happens.
that once. I think I've only ever done that once. I was just at the time, I think it was my one day off, and I'd finally gotten to talk to my partner, and we were just like chilling out playing some games. And I know, Sam, you were trying to just contact me because you were asking me about something. And I was like, I can't tell you right now. I'm currently in the middle of something. Oh, okay, that's fine. And then you messaged me again. I was like, Sam, I really can't right now, man. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Oh, you have to tell me. Like 2 minutes later, it's like, you have to tell me. I can't go on without
say,
it.
at the time, you hadn't actually told me that A, it was your day off, and B, you were with someone.
No, I did then.
I don't think you even told me to stop at that point.
I did, yeah, I did just say.
After I asked for a specific thing, did you tell me?
But that's
Sam,
exactly.
I've got my girlfriend with me. Blah blah blah. Okay then.
Yeah.
That would have been good 5 minutes ago, or
And
20 minutes ago, whenever I was asking you questions.
And that's exactly my point on communication. Like, when I looked back, I was like, I probably should have just told him that it was my day off. It's like, because in my mind, and exactly that thing of everyone's perspective, in your mind, you're always either the good guy, you're never the bad guy. And then I realized, oh no, I am the bad guy here because I didn't actually tell him. And that's exactly it. Like, communication, so important. You know, people need their space. But also, people need their explanations given. Like, you know, if you just go, I shouldn't have to explain myself. No, but if you at least give a reason as to why you don't need to explain yourself. Like, for instance, like, I am having my day off, or I am with my partner who I don't get to see, or, you know, or even I am not having the best times, or I'm juggling 7 plates because I'm trying to feed my family right now. You know, whatever. I don't have that big a family, and I don't think I've ever used that many plates, but, you know, that was sort of like a representation of something. But yeah, you know, people should obviously be able to give you space, but I think that communication is so important, because otherwise, like, you're just yelling at someone, like I did. And then I realised, I should have probably told him. Does anyone else have any questions for Des?
Des, what would you say is the best sort of either remedy or way to avoid sort of burnout, not just with DMs, but just with creative sort of pursuits in general?
To avoid burnout, burnout is inevitable. There's no way to avoid it. Especially when you get to something that you absolutely love, and you just like, you do it, and then you're seeing so many people feed off of it, the excitement, and it gets exciting. Again, I've had burnout twice, and I tried it. Still early. I tried to avoid it. The first time I told everybody, you know, I need a break, and Joe was nice. He gave me a break. He's like, okay. And
Yeah, sure.
there were some people that were like, okay, and they just, you know, they left me alone for a couple weeks. But there were other people that were like, well, when are we gonna start again? When are we gonna start again? What do you need help with? What do you need help with? And I'm like, I just need time. And then when I went back, and I was like, okay, you guys asked me what I needed help with. This is what I need help with. And I think, Joe, you were one of them. Chris, my husband, was another one, and there was a third person. I won't go into names, but they were they actually did help. They stepped up, like 3 people, and they were like, okay, I will do this. I will take on this for you. And they did, and everybody else just didn't, even though they were like, well, what do you need help with? Well, can you do this? Well, I'm busy. And I'm like, okay. And then I was like, okay, that's understandable. And so I took it on again. So I kept putting stuff on myself, and again, the burnout happened. And when I told somebody to back off, I said, I need space. I just got back from Japan. I need space. I need time. I'm, you know, doing live streams. I do, you know, the website. I do the the podcast, I do editing, you know, I'm juggling all these people. It was like, I need space. And this one person just did not, well, let's talk, let's get together, let's do it. And I just shut them out. Like, that's what I meant. I just retracted. I was like, okay, we're done. And that's when the 12D20 just ended, because I was, you know, and the burnout happened so quickly, nobody saw it coming. I saw it coming, my husband saw it coming, nobody else did. So, you know, my advice to people that want to avoid burnout, it's probably going to happen. Like Alex had mentioned, it's to communicate, and everybody said on this podcast, communicate. And when communication fails, it's going to fail, and somebody's going to get hurt. Multiple people are going to get hurt. But being able to grow from that experience is the important part. Being able to move forward and then come back to RPG later, or come back to your friends, that's the important part. Because struggles will happen. You know, stuff will hit the fan. You know, I'm censoring myself, Joe. Aren't you proud?
I am proud. Yeah.
I've been cussing like a sailor since March. But
honestly, so have I. We were doing a recording like last week for a new campaign, which we may or may not put on the channel. And I don't know how much I cursed, but I'm pretty sure like it's one of those things where it's like probably should put like a 15 rating on this or something.
But yeah, I mean, bad things will happen. It's you overcoming them and becoming a better person that will make you grow. I know that's like the worst advice ever, because people want to avoid
real.
that. It is, yeah.
Advice right there.
You gotta learn from it.
If you want, like, I have seen a video that helps explain that idea of taking on problems quite easily. Have you ever seen Frasier?
Oh yes, I have seen Frasier.
There was one called, I think it was called like Dark Victory, an episode called Dark Victory, and there's a speech at the end where he explains that although he is a psychiatrist on air, he loses a bit of himself every time he helps someone. A little bit here, a little bit there. So until he feels like kind of empty. So sometimes he needs a break to try and like, because he meant to go home to have a barbecue with his family, but then the whole area kind of got like a blackout. So he had to then deal with everyone else's problems at home.
Yeah.
And the minute they smelled like barbecue downstairs, they decide just to leave him there.
Aww.
And he like yells at them for no, but like they call him like, was it a party pooper as a joke? And then he gives this speech explaining that sometimes he just wanted to have a night in with them, but no, they just want to go down there and have that. So he's just kind of sick of people at that point.
Don't blame him.
Yeah.
It's a great episode.
I think.
Do you recommend it?
I think that is entirely such a good point. No, I mean in Frasier, BoJack Horseman, and I can't remember. There's another show. But basically, like shows like that. Basically, they talk about the humanity of everything. Like, you know, ultimately, like there's no, not the nihilism of it. Like I'm not saying that nihilism isn't always useful, but it can always be very destructive. It's one of those double-edged swords that the one edge is very sharp, very much sharper than the other.
I've always felt like nihilism is just like mainly used as an excuse to like completely let go of everything. It's kind of like blaming the fact that your own belief systems have collapsed on external sources, whereas it should be a cause then to look inward at the problem of the belief systems that you have.
It's a bad cope, really. Nihilism is.
It's a way of showing.
I wasn't even meaning it like that.
No. I was actually.
You could send that clip to someone to explain like, this is what I'm feeling right now.
It's the way that I'm trying to sort of convey it.
Understand quite easily.
Is the best sort of way to understand is there can be. So my burnout that I got, because Des knows this, that I actually had burnout, and I am someone who, as anyone knows, talk quite a lot. But for me, the probably the hardest thing that I had to struggle with during a burnout moment was I had it where every week at least someone would not be coming to the session. Every other week there'd be someone missing, and someone with always an excuse right at the last second, and It was really, really sort of bugging me, and it started getting really bad. And it wasn't something that I was being over dramatic about, because I just wanted to leave it and just see how it was going. It was really getting me down, because as a DM, your job is to sort of make everyone's sort of story work well. And when people are saying, "Oh, can I have this? Can I have that? Can I do this personal story? Can I have this personal thing?" It's like, yeah, okay, I guess so. And it's almost like you're bribing them to come back, or even they're asking for a bribe for them to come back. And after a while, it was like, well, I guess you could do this. Eventually, I did just snap, and I just, like, not harshly or anything. I just went, "Look, I'm guessing you're not coming back then." And I was like, "Oh, no, I will be. Chill out. It will only be next session or something." I was like, "No, this isn't just about the fact that it's a playtesting. Today, we had 2 people show up, and me. And at the time, it was a tabletop session. It was an actual, we went to a games table, and we actually had to either spend money, cost our own physical time and effort to get into a place and book up a table, which admittedly didn't cost that much, but still, either way, it was just money out of our pockets, time out of our lifespan. And we all got there, and only 2 people showed up. And I think it was Alex and Bill or something like that, or Alex and Graham or something. And I just said, I honestly, guys, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep letting people do this to me, because otherwise I think I'm gonna give up. And I think it was just this moment where I said, I think I'm going to have to do a one-shot and try and get some more people involved. And Bill, my brother couldn't come to that one. And Bill, I said to him that I didn't want him to come because he was ill. And I said, I don't want you to come to this one because, to be honest, I assumed everyone else is coming. And no one messaged me until half an hour in. And it was like, I've wasted my time, Graham wasted his time, Alex wasted their time, and the 3 of us had wasted money because I had to get a train, Alex had to get a bus, and Graham drove there. And it was like, oh man, that was a real sucker punch, honestly. And two people messaged. I knew one person wasn't coming, but 2 people, the last 2 people messaged. One of them messaged me half an hour before, which was at that point too late, and the other one messaged half an hour after it already started, which again was very much disgustingly too late. And I just said to both of them, like, I'm kicking everyone out and I'm going to redo a new group. And thankfully, we just started a new group, and thankfully we had Alex, Graham, thankfully Alfie, we got Bill, and it went really well. And then when the lockdown happened, we were able to finally mix our schedules together and have Sam and my partner Siobhan. She has helped me so much through this as well. And that's kind of what happened with my burnout. So what I would say to anyone who is actually having a problem with scheduling, if you have a majority of people who aren't doing it, kick them. If you're having too many people, get rid of the ones who either seem like they don't want to be there, or people who seriously aren't taking it properly enough. Because it's not a serious thing. It is just a game, absolutely. But the benefits should outweigh the negatives. Because if you're the one who's getting worked over and everyone else is like not feeling really comfortable around the situation of this person or these people that aren't turning up, and yet they're spending a lot of their hard time just to put these 2, 3, 4 hours away so that they can play a game with everyone else and enjoy themselves, and they're not able to enjoy themselves because a selfish person is not actually giving their time up for it, or he's even just like downright just being really awful to the rest of the team. Drop them.
I have a question for everybody too. You make a very, very good point. You made an excellent point. I have a question for everybody to kind of relay off of that. Has there ever been in any of your sessions, either you were controlling, you were the DM, or you were a player, you had one person in the group that just nobody was comfortable with at all, and either you had to be the one to step up, or you told your DM to step up? I know with our group, there was one person that was making people uncomfortable, and once I removed this person from the group, then people told me that they really didn't like that person. They were thankful that that person's no longer in the group. So
This brings me back to the
as a
first ever
DM,
episode
yeah.
of the podcast. If anyone hasn't seen it, check out the D12 the 12D20, and you'll understand. Like we spoke with Puffin Forest, and we actually said about this exact sort of thing in one of our
Yep,
podcasts.
Yep. So, as a DM, I had to step up and remove that person, but I didn't know everybody else was having a problem. I knew I was having a problem, but it didn't come to light until after that person was gone. So, has that happened to any of you guys where
Well,
you had to step up?
thankfully, not in this group, but there are some horror stories that I know from people who've been agree. I mean, there was like one that was very short-lived where I just was not comfortable. But this was like 10 years ago, I think. It's just I wasn't comfortable, with the people there. They were like kind of, very sort of edgy on purpose. And it's like, yeah, they're not even my friends. Like, why am I even in this group? It's like I just thought to myself, it's like, yeah, I'm not even, I'm not liking it. I'm not into it. So I had to remove myself pretty much. But it was like there was a situation, but there are like quite recently. I'm not going to name names because this is like confidential. None of you know them anyway. But
I mean, yeah, this is more of a
yeah.
podcast about the stories, not the people.
Yeah. It was just like a friend of mine who shall remain nameless was had a character, and the DM wanted to take it in a direction that she wasn't comfortable with, and it just sort of felt like, because it was sort of like, well, I don't really wanna, and it was like another person was like being really mean to them, like quote unquote in character, but those like jokes were not making her comfortable either. And again, she voiced it to a DM saying, can we not do this, and like maybe do that, and DM just kind of ignored her, just said, oh yeah, whatever, or grow thicker skin, all that sort of stuff. And eventually just all these little things just bubbled over into a huge thing where like where the player in question took it too far, and then she sort of just fought back and said like, actually no, really, this isn't okay. And being called out on that it's not being okay just sent everyone into a massive meltdown. It's like, how dare you haven't you didn't have a problem with this before. It's like, I did. It's like, just say, I did. I voiced complaints repeatedly and you just ignored it. And it, like, the whole game basically was destroyed from that. And it's like, all you needed to do was just listen to this one place, say, just, okay, don't do that. Or, like, if they refuse to stop making jokes that make people, like, really uncomfortable, then, either talk to that person or say, like, look, if you can't, like, stop making this person uncomfortable, then you have to go. But again, it's sort of like, oh,
If it's the majority, then clearly that wasn't a place for them. But if it is the one, then no, it should be up to the DM and the majority of the people to actually go, okay, if they're not comfortable with this, you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, yeah, it's really that horrible thing that sadly, if the majority is there, then it is that time for that person to leave because they are feeling sort of isolated. I'm not a person to go say like, grow thicker skin, but sometimes I am, but there comes a time where it's like, grow thicker skin versus, no, you are out of order when you're saying this, because at this point it's not in game, you are almost saying it to try and get a rise out of the player, the person, not the actual character. And at that point, no, you have gone too far. You've taken it out of the game, guys. It's no longer the thing about the game.
It is just like, it is sort of a kind of awkward thing though, because I mean, it is sort of like, well, they were in a situation where they were like being friendly and social and stuff, and no one kind of wants to ruin the party, but sometimes you do have to kind of like, step up and say, well, actually this isn't okay, or actually just like make those tough decisions. And if you don't make those tough decisions, then it can just get worse. Basically, it's advice with everything, really. It's like, I've learned from bitter experience, you have to kind of deal with stuff early, because if you leave it longer, it gets worse and it gets more awkward and more people get hurt.
It's that thing of treat people how you want to get treated, and if you voice out your problems and your opinions with things, or even your own feelings about it early, as you said, then it will be done. Because if you just leave it, then people just assume it's okay to do something like that and it's all right. Whereas, like, obviously, as you said with your friend, if you give forewarning, kind of like a rattlesnake, they give a forewarning. If you then put your hand near its face, you deserve what you're gonna get. But it's true. Like, in all honesty, I've had that with a player. Like, they went excessively. I will say, all three of you at least know this player, and also Des, you've heard of this player a couple of times. Actually, no, you've played alongside them once. They would not stop saying certain things that were quite. I'm gonna just say not appropriate. Very, very kind of almost like insulting to a particular kind of degree. And I had a friend of mine who was just trying to get into the game, and they just kept saying jokes. They weren't even really jokes at that point, and I mean, no one else was laughing. They were just saying really horrible stuff, like, "Oh, well, I guess like your character is your opinion or whatever." It's like, no, it's like that's actually what my character is, and it's like, oh, well, that's a stupid thing. It's like, well, they're sort of based off of me. Oh, well, then that's your problem then. And I actually had to talk to them in private multiple times, and they were actually a person that was not very good with scheduling, but because that I'd known them for a long time, and because technically I'm related to one of them, I was like, okay, well, I guess they can keep coming. And eventually I just went, no, okay, you're not turning up, you're not talking to me, you're not talking to anyone else, and when you do turn up, you're actually downright rude and offensive to every single person. I've told you this multiple times not to do it, and you need to stop. Don't bother coming to any more of the sessions. And that's it. Like, as it's sometimes as either a DM or a player, you have to make that tough call. And yeah, I'm sorry, but like if you gain anything from something that someone is losing, at that point, it's not really fair. It's not a fair transaction, and especially if like all you are doing is taking. It's a give and take system in this world, and there are positives to every negative, and there are negatives to every positive. But if the negatives outweigh the positives, then it's not a good thing. I'm sorry, but that's just it. Like, so I mean, yeah. Does anyone else have any like horror stories or bad stories from particular things?
I don't really. I've never really encountered that many. I mean, the most towards that degree that I've ever experienced personally is just like occasionally we'll just get a DM that's a bit too in love with their own OCs.
All right, hang on, whoa.
I mean,
Simon.
this is a call-out cast. No, it's kind of no. It's all fine. Kind of like making like if you're gonna make a big evil villain or you're gonna make a big sort of hero or something like that, giving them obviously the spotlight to showcase their character, which is fantastic. But like, which obviously everyone should do. But the most I've ever kind of encountered there is just sometimes you'll encounter sort of a DM that makes a character that they obviously really like, and then they kind of make it so that their own character overshadows a lot of the other player characters that are playing, and kind of other cases where like people would be sort of like there'll be a situation and players will come up with an idea of how to use their characters, like combine strengths, weaknesses, and whatever to get around it, and then the DM would kind of like just say, well, no, actually, because this other character that I've made has already done it, or sort of like put their character kind of in the spotlight of the player characters' places, which is kind of like it should be like the characters there should be there to add flavor to the story, add structure and flesh to the story, and kind of help the players or hinder them depending on what their job is, rather than just completely overshadowing them entirely. But that's never really been like a personal issue. It's been, I think, a lot more to do with the fact that like the person who's DMing probably would rather have like played after a little while of like with that character, than them finding a way to kind of like get their experience of playing that character in, which is it's one of those things. Again, as you said earlier, it's like communication really is key, and no one is going to begrudge you if you just say, actually, guys, do you mind if we just do a campaign where someone else DMs so that I can play this character that I've come up with, or do you mind just doing a one shot or something like that? Like, that's great. But it's just kind of like picking where to use your characters, I think, in that case. But yeah, it's never really been like a personal issue at all. And I've never really had any issues at all in years and years. I think it's just like that was back when I was playing like old school like D&D, when I didn't really know what I was doing at all. So I just kind of like I literally like one of my mates at that time, because that was one of the first times I've really come into like playing RPGs like this. Is like essentially just had one of my friends kind of just make me a character. Like I'll give them a couple of like keywords and say, do you mind just like making a character, because I just don't understand what I'm doing at all. And it's like years of then kind of like making characters after that have kind of built up to now where I am actually now comfortable saying, I know what I want and I know how to sort of create it. That's pretty much all I've ever had, really.
What about you, Sam?
No real things come to my mind at the moment. I mean, there have been some cases, usually on the DMing front. There have been cases where the story you've been playing has been a bit, I don't want to say ridiculous, but a bit too goofy, I think would be the word, for what the rest of the group wanted.
Okay, so it was one time.
I mean, let's be honest, all of your campaigns. It was mostly because, like, one of the examples was we were playing as mercenaries in this kind of guild thing, and we were meant to be trying to stop this dragon of some sort. Something like that. And one of the first things we got to this temple, and it was a chicken temple, of course. Worship chickens, had loads of chickens.
Is this a Xana thing?
How did you know?
I mean,
him and his love of chickens.
He does love chickens.
It was very weird.
Oh my god!
We just kind of, and because of that, the game kind of ended quite quickly after that, believe it or not. But to be honest, I really wish they could use an analogy to your. Remember the idea of hate festers? These small niggles begin to fester into big things over time.
Yes, kind of like the snowball effect.
I was thinking more of the great Golden Girls, for those who have seen it.
No,
I was thinking,
come on.
Yes, I have.
Anger is like shredded wheat in your dentures. If you don't remove it, you get a boil and you have to eat Jello for a week. But if you remove it soon, the boil goes and you're fine.
I mean,
wise words.
I never
Okay.
thought I'd hear that analogy.
I never thought I'd hear that analogy. I mean, the other analogy that
The other analogy I thought of was, of course, the fester on the arm. Either it'll grow and it'll consume your entire body, or you treat it, or what Alex said, cut it off at the wrist.
Once again, Sam, with one of your stories, you've managed to just take us on the highs, the lows, the emotional journey, and
Exactly. Sorry, I thought I was getting a bit too serious, a bit too damp and dire. I thought it's about time I made some ridiculous reference.
I think
we
we need that. I think we needed that.
And
Thank you,
Des,
Sam. As always,
glad
we
you've
can
seen
count.
Golden Girls.
I was just thinking off that tangent as well. It's like, thankfully, not of my personal experience or any of my friends, but I have heard a few things from online and stuff, and most of the complaints that come down to is like a DM just getting way too precious and on rails about criticism. Like, just again, it's all down to communication. Again, it's like, I mean, criticism is hard. I'll take that. I don't take criticism very well, and that's a personal character flaw. But like, when you're like, in a game featuring other people, you have to sort of take it on the chin a little bit, or engage with it in some way. And a lot of the time, just awful story decisions are just like, picking on a player or making them railroad into one particular thing when the players want to go somewhere, and it's just saying, yeah, basically like being too invested in the OC. It's like in their OCs, it's like, okay, I thought out this is the journey you're going to go on, and screw all of you if you diverge from my vision.
I mean,
and getting way too.
This is one of the things that I wanted to go on to. Like, we've been talking a lot about DMing and like actual gaming, and I think like the one positive that I will say at the end of this, maybe Des, I'll let you sign off. But before we'll do that, I'll just say this for the end of it. I usually say at the end of this, does it work? Could it work? Has it worked in Animal Tales? And I say, I'm gonna say this, yes, because I've seen all of you, every single one of you, become good friends to me, as well as incredibly amazing testers for the game. I could not have asked for any greater people to be testing it, either if it's to make a funny character who is as powerful as almost a demigod, despite the fact that he is a mime. Never speaks, but yet is always goofy. Whether you are a character who can stop time, or even a person who can make an entire campaign that is entirely authored on themselves, and an entire module that is sort of similar to the sort of Lovecraftian Bloodborne sort of style of like universe, waiting to be explored in almost a roguelike sort of style. Whether it is that you have a character who can, I don't know, something that whatever Johnny there can do. No. Whether or not you actually can make characters that are kind of like, they're not good at damage output, but they're actually really good at utility abilities like Aspen or Creep or anything like that. And sometimes characters aren't always supposed to be super powerful. And then we come to Des, your character Micah. It showed me that a character can actually be kind of funny and also yet sound kind of cutesy, but really just be really sort of badass and really cool without even needing their powers, and then be terrifying as soon as their powers work.
Oh, that's right. She did have a voice. She had a little voice like this. It was crazy.
Oh,
That's what she talked like. She just talked like this. Oh my god. Okay, that was her voice.
it's a little rock.
And I loved it. I've loved it. So my personal thing that I'd say that is a positive is I've seen you guys grow as people, as players, as DMs, and as my friends. So thank you for letting me be a part of that journey. So that's my positive that I've gained from RPGs.
Oh, shucks. Aw.
Aw.
It's like when you overhear your dad talking about you to someone else and saying, like, singing your praises, and you're just kind of standing in a doorway, just like, yeah.
Not gonna lie, that's how it felt hearing Joe talk about Aspen.
Thank you.
I was just like a little tear in my eye. It just backs down.
I'm not crying. You're crying. You crying little loser.
Thank you for reminding us that this is ultimately the wholesome podcast.
Yes. So, Des, do you have anything to sign us off with?
I think you put it beautifully. When you get to know people, when you get to know their characters, it just, you get to know more about them and you get to appreciate them a lot more. You find similar interests with people, as well as they become your support as well. There's friendships that get into RPG that are, you never thought you'd be friends with somebody like this, but there it is. And it's a common ground, kind of, where everybody, regardless of background, politics, whatever, it's like, you got this game, you got this person, now you got that friend. And it's absolutely amazing to see people grow, like you said, and to become either the better part of them, or, either you've seen the best or worst of them. You will always see the best of them. You've seen their characters, and the more bonds you can create within different stories, the longer that friendship will last. And like I said, you put it definitely beautifully, and I definitely appreciate each and every one of you for helping Joe with this. You say that you're like the dad of this group, but y'all are very supportive. He's talked, when I talk to him, he says, yeah, this person does this and this. He is like a proud papa, and it's just like, that's why I was so excited. I was so excited to meet you guys, because he did talk y'all up. And he did, it's like,
he's not just a dungeon master, he's a dungeon father, and that's all that matters.
So I wanted to thank you all, for helping Joe, create, and coming soon as well with the animation and all of your guests, but your playtesters definitely. They bring your stories to life, Joe.
Yes,
and,
they do.
You're very appreciative of them, but I definitely think they should appreciate their support as well. You guys definitely helped Joe a lot, and thank you for helping him.
Yeah.
Okay, group hug.
The hug of group. But thank you, Des. Thank you, honestly, for coming along to this session. And of course, Alex, Alfie, and Sam, thank you very much for coming to this one. Yes, I am proud of all of you. I am thankful to all of you, as not only my patrons, but also as my playtesters, as my friends, and of course, as the people who basically give me nightmares every night of what horrors you will bring to me in the next sessions. But
don't forget the monies.
Of course, I can't forget that. As it's just like, don't forget the monies, as he just sort of slips me a tenner from across the pond. But yes, thank you very much, guys, and you have, as always, been wonderful. Thank you very much, Des, for joining us. Next week, we will actually have a different type of podcast. Now, the funny thing is, we'll be going back to our tropes. Now, I was saying that we'd be doing why are prototypes always the best model, or at least why are they sort of a cliche? Why is the trope of the prototype being the most interesting or the greatest model? But honestly, I'm actually going to open up to every one of you. What do you think our next one should be? Has anyone else got any particular topics that they might want to bring on to the next session, the next podcast?
Actually, I wouldn't. You know what my favorite trope is. It's again, I say favorite because it is bad to use in writing still, but I love it in movies where they have like the hacker stereotype and like they go I'm in. Yeah, I love that. It makes no sense. It ruins stories, but god damn it, do I want to do that in real life? I just love it.
The
so
trope
much.
of prototypes, the stereotype of hackers. Sam, Alfie, Des, do you guys have any any suggestions for the next one?
The stereotypes of hackers?
Yes, the stereotypes of hackers.
I have a hacker friend who is amazing. He is a genius of geniuses. Actually, going to have dinner with him this evening. He's coming over to the house.
Can we have him? We could get him on.
He knows how to pick locks. He knows how to get into systems. If I ever were to get out of my, I couldn't get out of my computer, he would be the first person I call.
You're stuck inside your computer.
Hackers.
I would like view him as. I will literally view him like a wizard. Like I feel like that. I'm like a Luddite with technology, and I'm like, you do magic.
He does. Coincidentally, his first character ever in any D&D was a wizard.
Oh my god!
Brilliant.
Yeah, he's the planner of the group. He's very analytical. He's like, what are we gonna do? What steps are we gonna take? He's actually one of the people that brings the group together. Like, all right, he's the herder of the cats. You know, he's
he's the planner.
He'll be like, all right, let's organize this.
So perhaps that could be in a couple of weeks' time we can discuss about that. But however, Sam, Alfie, do you guys have any other particular subjects that you might want to explore?
I would.
Anything at the moment?
Okay.
Go for it. Also, I'd like to discuss and kind of explore sort of what genres and what I guess like kind of like early childhood sort of stories that kind of inspired you to take this route, either as a player or as a DM, or to just be a creative person in general. See what kind of genre you seem to swing to mostly, and what sort of like early films or stories or whatever really influenced you. Because I think a lot of times with those, as I said earlier, like with characters kind of like being a part of certain people, and you can really tell which person makes which character. I believe it's the same with stories as well. You can really tell which person is making which story because of the stories that influenced them as a younger humanoid.
Okay, well, in that case, we'll do that in a couple of weeks' time. Then we'll also do hackers at some point in the tropes of hackers. So next week will probably be then why are prototypes usually seen as the best model, or at least the cliche of the prototype somehow being somewhat better than the actual open model. So
I have a lot to say about that.
Actually, I have thought of one trope that I think is quite interesting now that I think about it.
Okay.
Is the villain of the hero either being a carbon copy of themselves, ergo Flash and Reverse Flash, or a universal duplicate of themselves that has become evil through circumstances, like Spider-Man and Spider-Carnage?
To be honest, that there's a common trope across like loads of different characters and different stories. There.
So
It's
in that
pretty much
case,
like every original superhero or origin story has that as a basic villain.
next week we'll be doing antithesis villains, people who often have the same powers or roughly the same or the exact opposite powers of the hero, the grand protagonist and or hero of the story, and why their antagonist needs to usually have a power either similar or the exact opposite of their powers. So thank you everyone for joining us, and as always you have been wonderful. So goodbye everyone.